All right, so, well, this is cool and all, so I can, say my name or say it 100 times or whatever. There's a lot of things that I can do here, but I actually want to play around with conditionals a little bit. So, meaning if ABC, or let's change it back to name, if that actually doesn't exist, or if it's not actually showing up, I want to play around with the conditionals. So that is, I can say span ng if name, and then we put the name in there, and then we close off that span, and then we do span ng if equals to exclamation mark name. I'll explain this in a second. And then we close off that span. Okay, so let's jump back in, refresh, and we see that it says hello world. And if I type out my name, it now says hello Justin. So this is a very simple conditional. And if I go ahead and space this out in a way that makes it better for me to see it, and if you remember HTML, it doesn't matter about spaces, it just matters mostly about tags. Some spaces make a difference, but mostly it doesn't matter. Okay, so what we see here is we have this conditional of ng if. We're saying basically if the name exists, then put the name. If it does not exist, so exclamation mark name or the opposite of whatever that is, then we'll go ahead and put world. Right? So this is just a very simple conditional. It's not really that complicated. So let's go ahead and add something with classes. We're going to do a conditional with adding a class. So I'm going to go ahead and in this h1 class, I'll say class equals to new class. And inside of my head, I will go ahead and make inline style sheets with style. And we're going to make our class just kind of ridiculous. I'm just going to go in here and say font size being like 72 pixels. Refresh in there, and now it's really, really big. But what I want to do is make it really small when I start writing my name. So if Justin is in there, then I want to make sure that I add another class, and I'll say other dash class, and I'm going to just say font size equals to 32 pixels. No big deal, just kind of swapping out the class. And we can do this by using another sort of condition called ng class, and we're going to set this equal to, notice what I'm doing here, got single parentheses and curly brackets, and we're going to say the name of the class we're going to call it, which is going to be, or sorry, we want to use double quotes here actually, curly brackets, single quote, other dash class, and colon after that single quote, and then the condition, which was name. All right. So then we want the curly brackets to end it. So this is going to say that it's going to add this class when we use name. All right. So this is just kind of cool. Just bear with me as we play around with this. And let's go ahead and save it. Refresh in here. Say your name. And notice that my class changed, right? It actually added that class to the element. So if I look at this element, I go to inspect. And I'm going to see that the element, the h1 class, says here, new class and other class. It says ng class, this other class, and name. Okay, so what's going on here exactly? This is actually called what's a directive. That's what the name of this is. That is also a directive here. So basically what Angular is doing, and it's doing really well, is it's saying, okay, give us this some class name. In this case, I put it in quotes. It's very possible that if we used without quotes, it still could work, but using quotes ensures that it works, especially when you have a dash or something else in here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it inside of quotes. And of course, the inside quotes have to be the opposite of whatever is on the outside. But in this case, it says we're going to add this other class based off of some condition here. And I can actually say based off the condition that name is equal to, single quotes, Justin with the capital J. So let's try this again. I'm going to refresh in here. And I'll say ABC, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change. If I change it to Justin, and notice right as soon as I finish and press in, it changes. I didn't press enter. I didn't do anything. It just does that automatically, as you can see. So this is a condition, right? That's a very simple if statement inside of there to change the classes. This is actually very, very practical, especially if you've used JavaScript or jQuery to do this before. Angular does it very practically and it does it very quickly using something not much different than what we see on this actual conditional right here, also known as a directive. And for ng class, you can see more uses of it on the documentation for Angular itself. So hopefully that was actually a little bit useful for you, but we might even want to go one step further. In fact, we might want to change the font size here to something that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some curly brackets here, and I'm just going to play with this. This right here is not advisable. I wouldn't suggest that you do this because realistically you're not going to be writing inline style sheets, but I do want to see if I can actually have a variable up here and make some changes to it by an input. So let's go down here and I'll say input type equals to text. And notice I called this variable font. So I have to call that ng model equals to font. And I'll write a placeholder in here. So placeholder equals to font as well. So we save it, refresh, and now I see this font. So we're going to say font size. Let's just do 190 pixels. And again, I want to type out my name, Justin. And notice it changes it. If I change it to 290, it will continue to get bigger and bigger. I just changed it to even bigger than that. So that's pretty cool. I can actually do it there as well. Again, this is not very good practice. You won't want to do this sort of thing. Instead, you're going to want to make specific classes so it changes dynamically that way based off of a condition versus based off of somebody's input, which you could still do based off of the input. You can still change that condition on this other one. So let's actually do that. I'm going to change this font back to being 32 pixels. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a different condition. And I'm going to put comma here. And I'll say new class 2. And we're going to just put this condition equals to font equal to 120. Okay, so we'll add this new class in here. And this new condition, font size, 120, 120 pixels. All right, so it's going to add based off of this condition right here. Save it, refresh. I'm going to say Justin. Notice it changed it. And then font, I just did 120. Notices it changes it to 120. Pretty cool. So that's how you use ng class. That's how you use some conditional stuff. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.